right, welcome to week 3, everybody. So I did do some grading over the weekend, and again, this is just Dr. D giving you some feedback about things I saw. Also, some of the direct questions folks were emailing me or you included in your submissions that I figured I'd address for everybody here. One of the big questions that to start off with was just about the IDE in general. Again, as you saw in the previous week, I do give you options on what you are most comfortable with. Normally, students who are already in like the computer software degree program, you might have already had experience with NetBeans and you're more comfortable with that. One thing I do advise is for those of you who are completely brand new to this realm, you're gonna see me using Atom quite frequently. Atom was released by GitHub as far as a what we call a hackable uh, type of IDE. Now, what do we mean by hackable? It means that because GitHub is so focused on open source projects that it allows us to go in and add packages and kind of tweak the overall layout to how you need it as a developer. So before I dive in here, as far as some of the notes on the HTML and things like that that I had, I wanted to talk just about Atom in and of itself here. One question I got was whenever I'm previewing HTML, students would often see whereby I could actually bring up a preview window for the HTML document that I was working with. And I was getting asked about, well, how did you do that? Atom, whenever you are working with it, offers you things called packages. So whenever you first open the software, what you're actually going to see over here is under the welcome guide, there's something called install a package. If you click on that, it's going to give you kind of a brief overview of what packages are, but you're going to want to tell it to open the installer. And what you are going to be able to see here is you are going to be able to search packages that you can run as far as your overall software package. So for Atom, I mean, you can technically set this up to compile Java, you can technically set this up to compile Python, C++, etc., not just HTML and CSS. For those of you who don't work in those other languages I just listed, don't even worry about them. So one of the things that you can do though is at the top here, there's a search packages option. And like if I type in HTML here, as you can see, a lot of folks just upload a bunch of different types of packages that you can use as you continue on working with HTML and CSS. Now, what I'm going to show you here though is the packages panel here. This is going to list out for you first off everything that you already have installed. So as you can see under community packages here, I actually have 6 that are already installed that I pulled just because I needed them. The one that you're going to want to look for if you want to use what I'm using here is this Atom-HTML preview. And when you're ready to install something, so let me see if I can do Atom-HTML preview here. Here we go. So it will pop up for you here. And because I have it installed, you're seeing these extra buttons. It's actually going to look like the button up here. So you're going to want to click on the install. And what it'll do is automatically install the package for you. So once you have that done, you'll be able to go under your packages panel under the settings, and you should see that popping up for you here. Now, the default keyboard shortcut for this is Control, Shift, and the H key. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And that can also tie me in here as far as some of the other questions I was getting as far as some of the tags were concerned from last week. So let me go ahead here. I'm going to make myself a little bit of space here in my panel here. So let's go ahead. We'll do a H2 tag. I'll call this examples for week 2. Okay. Couple of things that I noticed that folks were doing. So we have, this is some text in a strong tag. All right, so first thing I want to point out to folks is one thing I noticed was folks were forgetting to make sure that you had both the less than and greater than symbols of the tags at the end. So if I were to save this and preview this, you can see like I made that error there. And if you look over here, you see how I'm seeing the end of the tag there. Is it technically functioning? Yes, web browsers nowadays are notorious, and honestly, I think it's a terrible practice that it makes assumptions for you. Oh, you meant to close that, or you wanted to have that applied there. So you want to make sure that you do have the tags opening and closing correctly. I pointed it out to a few folks. I didn't take points off for it, but it can have ramifications. Now, on the flip side, though, I had folks that were asking between this is some text in a bold tag. And the thing is the text looks identical whenever you're previewing it. And actually, I'll go one step further here. Let me go ahead and come under Documents, and I'll open up Week 2 feedback so I can kind of scroll and make this a little bit bigger for everybody here. Let me refresh. Now, a couple of notes here on what you're seeing. Because I don't have any form of a break tag or a paragraph tag, that's why even though in the code formation and formatting here, I have these items on separate lines, HTML is a language that doesn't recognize spaces or enters. If I want to have these on separate lines, I would have to go in and toss in that paragraph tag. Now, another question that I did get, and we'll come back to strong and bold in a second, is, okay, well, when I make changes though, it's not appearing in the web browser. You have to refresh your page. You save, then you refresh. So if I come back into my web browser and refresh, you see now how it's syncing up to my preview there. I do it all the time, but I'll forget to refresh. So the difference between strong and bold. HTML has evolved. We are now in HTML5, and prior to that, we only had bold and italic. This actually caused a lot of issues for screen readers and accessibility. So when we got into HTML5, what we started to use are what are called semantic tags. In the grand scheme of things, does strong and bold appear the same exact way in a web browser? Yes. Could you technically use them interchangeably? Yes. Is it the polite thing to do as far as consideration for those that have accessibility needs? No. When a screen reader is reading your web page, it is going to read the text that is contained in a strong and an M or emphasis tag much differently than it would as far as a bold or italic tag. That's the big difference here. So let me go ahead and show you one step further here. And let's go ahead here. I will throw in an HR tag. So again, if I'm doing this is text in an italic tag, I think I spelled italic right, versus this is emphasized text. And let me go ahead here. We'll come over here. Notice the similarities. Again, they look identical. However, if you have somebody who has the need for a screen reader, this is going to read very differently to them. So yes, we still talk about bold versus strong and italic versus M or emphasis, but it's more so for if you do go into web development and you're working on an older website where they are using things such as the B and I tag, you are probably going to want to facelift that page to represent the strong and the M tags in place of those two to stay within the accessibility constraints. So I just wanted to kind of go through that a little bit and talk as far as the overall layout there. And then some of the other questions that I got just to close up shop here was whenever I'm previewing my web pages, I can see, for instance, I'll double click here, I can see my CSS document whenever I'm working in my IDE, but I'm not seeing it when I come over and look at it in a web browser. Just a little bit of background to kind of flesh out the text here. Number one, you're actually not meant to see the CSS document itself. What you will see is what declarations are being, as far as the CSS document here, what declarations look like whenever they're being applied. They are being applied and connected through this specific line right here, where you're creating that relational style sheet link to the style sheet. So yes, whenever you're working in web design and development, we're normally working on two separate files. You're working on the HTML document that will control and be the document that is called upon and displayed in the web browser, while you have the CSS document that is attached to the HTML document, and it is actually adding the formatting and design of the overall website there. So I just wanted to clarify that for folks that yes, on the back end, you're going to be seeing both and working with both simultaneously. When you actually preview your website, though, you're not actually going to also have to double click and open the CSS document. So outside of that, though, those are kind of a lot of the questions that I got this week. And again, just throwing my little, update video out there for you. Again, you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or I do have my office hours outside of that. We've got our goodies for week 3, and I'll touch base again in the following week.